Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Recycled Content, a podcast of the Association of Plastic Recyclers, an international nonprofit and the only North American organization focused exclusively on improving recycling for plastics. I'm Kara Pochiro, and I'll be your host today. As I've talked about on previous podcasts, 2025 is a pivotal year for many commitments and initiatives focused on improving recycling for plastics. Throughout this year, we're also celebrating 30 years of the APR Design Guide for Plastics Recyclability, which is widely recognized across the globe as the authority on plastics packaging designed for recyclability. We are commemorating this milestone in a variety of ways, including launching a new and improved publicly available APR Design Guide digital tool. We also introduced the inaugural APR Recycling Leadership Awards. And of course, we're continuing to grow supporting programs, including recognition and training. Today, we're going to talk with our guests about the evolution of the APR Design Guide and how one company has utilized this tool to improve their packaging. Megan Byers has a multifaceted role as an APR program director, utilizing her love of data and design to bring a strategic, accessible approach to our programs. At the U.S. Plastics Pact, Megan leads multi-stakeholder work streams on design for recyclability, problematic and unnecessary materials, composting, and source reduction. Previously, she led communications, policy, and stewardship initiatives at the Product Stewardship Institute, where she specialized in plastic pollution prevention. We're also joined by Chris Max, who is a research lead in sustainable packaging innovation for Kraft Heinz Company. He has over 23 years of experience in packaging in both converter and CPG R&D capacities. At Kraft Heinz, Chris leads a sustainable innovation team focused on building a robust pipeline of packaging innovations that support company growth. Chris recently led a team that implemented 100% recycled PET in all of Kraft Mayo, Not Mayo, and Miracle Whip containers in the U.S. that will account for 15 million pounds of virgin plastic reduction annually. Chris has worked at Kraft Heinz since 2014 and previously held roles at Amcor Rigid Plastics and Husky Injection Molding Systems. He also sits on APR's PET Technical Committee and currently works within the U.S. Plastic Pact's PCR and Chemical Recycling Working Group. Chris holds a degree in plastics engineering from Ferris State University. Thanks and welcome to Megan and Chris for joining us today.
Great to be here, Kara. Thanks for the opportunity to nerd out on design.
Yeah, and thank you, Kara and Megan. It's an honor to be here with you all and share our journey. Extremely excited to share Kraft Heinz experience within APR's Design Guide.
Great. Megan, I'll start with you to give us a little bit of history. APR was founded in 1992 to create a sustainable business for recyclers and reduce plastic waste. The APR Design Guide is at the heart of that mission. Can you give us an overview of where it started and how it's evolved over the years?
Absolutely, Kara. Like you said, sustainability starts with design. And we say all the time, in a circular economy, brands are their own raw material suppliers. But the supply chain that returns the packaging back to them as recycled content is really complex. There's a lot that's changed over the last 30 years, both with the recycling system and our packaging materials. It's important to understand both, and we only have time to scratch the surface, but I'm going to try to unpack both sides of the system and then how the design guide knits them together. Leading up to the time APR was founded, concerns about running out of landfill space and pressure to conserve natural resources were driving waste policy. But of course, we didn't slow down production or consume less. We only continued to waste more. In 1980, Americans threw out about 3.5 pounds of waste each day. But by 2018, we were creating about 5 pounds of trash per person per day. That's the last year EPA collected data, but I'm willing to bet that it's even more now. With no end to waste in sight, state and local governments in the 90s set goals to at least divert some of it away from landfills. And recycling entrepreneurs, many of whom are APR members to this day, stepped up to find new ways to turn those piles of waste into new products. So the 90s saw a boom in new recycling collection programs to feed the growing system. US EPA estimates we had a national recycling rate of about 16% in 1990. That shot up to 29% by 2000 and 35% by 2017. Predictably, the recycling rate has leveled out, and we still have a lot of room to grow. Of course, we can't recycle what's never collected in the first place. That has to improve. But we can also increase the recycling rate by improving packaging design. Design is so critical. In fact, the U.S. Plastics Pact analyzed different levers we can pull to improve the recycling rate and found that design is the second largest driver of the recycling rate behind collection because it affects every single step in the recycling system. So through good design, we can make it more obvious what goes in the bin and make sure that once it's in there, it's actually compatible for that process. Plastic packaging in particular is a lot more complex than other materials. There's a lot more of it than it used to be, especially film and flexible packaging. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Our supply chains are longer and more global, so we need light, durable materials that travel well, that have longer shelf lives. The reality is, like it or not, plastics are embedded in our world now, and we do need some of them. But the flood of new plastic is only rising, and we need every tool in our tool belt to solve it. While recycling isn't a silver bullet, it's an essential part of the solution. After 30 years, we have a much more mature industry. We have experience, technology, capacity. We're ready to keep these materials in circulation. And the way forward is for recyclers and packaging producers to work together to meet the needs of production while also enabling recyclability. And APR was founded in this cooperative spirit. The very first APR Design Guide was published in 1994, and the small group of members that created it was destined to evolve into the more than 300 member companies and multiple technical committees that we have now. The design guide is a living resource that changes right alongside the recycling system and the packaging stream, and it's getting more precise over time as we conduct new research. Today, the design guide spans the diversity of resin types and packaging formats that are on the market. Over the past couple years, we've also improved the design guide's utility as a digital tool. And I can't share too many details yet, but we've got plans to expand our toolkit even further to better support the needs of brand owners.
Thanks for that really thorough overview of the industry and why the APR Design Guide was needed and how we've seen it grow over the years. Chris, now that we have this overall history, tell us about Kraft Heinz experience with the APR Design Guide.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the honor of working at Kraft Heinz, a leading food and beverage company that has been active within the APR Design Guide since 2018. I'm proud to say I've been fortunate enough to not only represent Kraft Heinz within APR for the past 7 years, but have an active seat at the table through collaborative partnership of brand, converter, innovator, and recycler. The design guide has helped set the industry up for success at scale. We use the guide as a valuable tool to inform our design of our packaging. By following the guidelines outlined in the APR Design Guide, Kraft Heinz has been able to improve our packaging portfolio by creating packaging that is more recyclable, contains more recycled content, or has been or is being designed for the future of recycling. Ruben Nance's APR's program director for Preferred Design Recognition's motto is to design with the end in mind, and Kraft Heinz has adopted that motto while considering our next generation of packaging innovation. We leverage APR in selecting technology regardless of the packaging feature. If you think about a rigid plastic package, for example, there's more than just the bottle. We need to consider the closure, whether or not the closure includes a liner, a label, the label adhesive, respective processing aids. All of the packaging features must complement one another. While leveraging APR's design guide, we need to not only consider compatibility within the recycle stream, but also the ongoing cost of implementation from a substrate selection point of view, the capital required to make a change in infrastructure or production line modification, and the impact on both our and our converting partners' manufacturing lines. I can't stress enough APR's clear guidance in providing a unified set of run rules that supports a circular economy is essential in helping not only Kraft Heinz achieve our goals, but the industry as a whole. This is truly a collaborative team effort.
It definitely is so much to consider in package design, and it's always great to hear that it's become such an essential tool at Kraft Heinz and other companies. The APR Design Guide has enabled companies to develop package designs that are sortable, that produce high-quality post-consumer resin or PCR, and packaging that is able to achieve recycle-ready status. Megan, give us some examples of some of the notable innovations that are on the market today that might be included in Kraft Heinz portfolio, but also many other companies too. Tell us about some of these innovations.
Yeah, thanks, Kara. So the design guide itself doesn't create any change. The people who use it do. For anyone who's not familiar, the design guide classifies all the features of package design to assess the recyclability of the package as a whole. A bottle, for example, is not just a bottle. It's got a cap and a label. Maybe it's got pigments. It's each of these individual components and how they come together that determines how that package will behave or misbehave in the recycling system. So we classify each feature of design into one of 4 recyclability categories: preferred, detrimental to recycling, renders the package non-recyclable, or requires testing. And the beauty of this structure is that we can both incentivize improvement and allow for innovation. That's why we have test protocols to assess performance instead of just saying yes or no. So over the years, the design guide, as you said, has enabled new package designs that are sortable, produce high quality PCR, and even transitioned entirely new formats to be recycle ready. I'll give an example of each. So first thing, in design for recyclability, you have to make sure that your packaging sorts properly into the correct commodity stream. Otherwise, it can contaminate other commodities or even not get sorted at all and end up in landfill anyway. Let's give the example of dark pigments. You'll still hear people say that black plastics aren't recyclable. That can be changed by brands and packaging converters procuring better pigments and securing end markets for dark-colored PCR. These are typically HDPE and polypropylene containers, so think of your black plastic takeout container or microwavable meal or personal care products, and they typically use a pigment called carbon black. On the sortation side, it's true that NIR, near infrared, optical sorters in recycling facilities can't detect these traditional super dark pigments. APR recognized that there were perfectly usable plastics being disposed just because the manufacturer happened to use an incompatible pigment. So we developed a sortation test that led to a whole new wave of innovation. And now we have 3 recognized suppliers who have NIR identifiable black and dark colorants that we can detect and sort. So shout out to Avient, Chromacolor, and Pencolor. And now Unilever's brand X can keep its iconic black bottle while ensuring it sorts correctly and gets recycled. Now for a PCR quality example. So once your container sorts into the correct commodity stream, it goes through a reclaimer who processes that material into PCR that can be made into new products. As an example, traditional label materials like paper, PETG, and PVC are highly problematic in the system. Paper fibers in the plastics recycling process will burn in the extruder, which leaves black specks and gels in the final PCR. Thankfully, our members in the labels industry have taken great strides. There are now alternative, compatible polymer-based label constructions for many kinds of packages and applications. We've also been able to help companies achieve recycle-ready status for entirely new packaging formats that haven't traditionally been accepted by municipal recycling programs in the past. Toothpaste tubes are a great example. They used to be multi-material with an aluminum barrier, a huge problem for plastics recyclers who can't handle those metals. But Colgate-Palmolive took an APR design training and worked with us for years to develop testing and guidance, and the result was a monomaterial HDPE tube with a wide enough shoulder to sort properly. We now have an entire new category of packaging that can be sorted and processed in the existing stream. Just a well-designed tube that's designed to be recycled. According to research by Stina, 90% of toothpaste tubes and over 75% of all HDPE tubes in the US are now designed for recycling and ready to be collected. It took producers and suppliers coming together to improve design and manufacturing. And this is really key. Huge props to Colgate for sharing their innovation. And this is what I mean by sustainability starts with design. We can go farther together than alone, and the design guide provides a roadmap that we can all follow.
Colgate is, of course, a great story, and we like to use that one as an example when we talk about the collaborative efforts that are necessary to push the industry forward. Of course, all those other examples you mentioned are really great innovations, some that have required changes in existing packaging and some brand new innovations. all of these changes can have a huge impact affecting millions of individual packages. Chris, can you give us some examples of some packaging design changes that Kraft Heinz has made, or even some new innovations that you're working on to ensure recyclability and or PCR content?
Absolutely. I'm excited to report we're working towards a number of innovations, but I'd like to highlight a couple. So I'm glad Megan brought this up earlier, but 3 of our North American brands in market today, Crave, Devour, and Smart Ones, have transitioned our oval trays from an unsortable color to a neat polypropylene tray. So we chose to eliminate the color as opposed to go to an NI sortable color. In layman's terms, neat polypropylene is polypropylene free of color. So this is a really big deal for us. APR's design guide helped guide our decision. As a food and beverage company, packaging plays an integral role in maintaining the integrity of our brand. Removing the color not only created an avenue for more recycle it, but provided Kraft Heinz with the ability to innovate. APR's broad reach within the value stream makes acknowledging a package attribute as detrimental clear and concise with not only the brand owner, but the innovator as well. We're all working from the same set of run rules. This leads to clear-cut solutions with limited back-end compromise. In this case, APR's design guide helped drive our decision to transition an entire portfolio from a non-recyclable substrate to recyclable. Millions upon millions of pounds of material that was otherwise destined for the landfill is now recyclable. Another example I'd like to highlight is we've transitioned all of our U.S. mayo squeeze bottles from a detrimental paper-based label, Megan, you also brought that up earlier, to a poly-based APR-preferred label and adhesive, something we're also very proud of. The last example I'd like to share involves one of our most iconic brands, Heinz tomato ketchup. As we all know, a large portion of our bottles are inverted and include a performance valve to assist in appropriate product evacuation. The valve has to provide a repeatable, consistent pour, so resin performance is paramount to package performance. We worked with our converting partner, APTAR, while leveraging APR's design guide to transition all Heinz tomato ketchup valves to a recyclable, compatible material from an otherwise detrimental material. This is important because oftentimes, even a small amount of contamination can lead to considerable yield loss. So at Kraft Heinz, we aim to reduce the use of virgin plastic in our global packaging portfolio. As part of this, last year we launched our 100% recycled PET campaign for all of Kraft Mayo, Not Mayo, and Miracle Whip bottles and jars in the U.S. The introduction of the recycled content offsets nearly 14 million tons of virgin plastic annually, an achievement we're proud of, but would not have been possible without the guidance of APR. We were recently honored by APR during this year's Plastics Recycling Conference with a Leadership Award for PCR utilization. As I mentioned, the design guide played a key role in this campaign. Both Kraft Heinz and our converting partner for Kraft Mayo, Plastipack, only use PCR certified by an APR-approved body. This not only ensures resin quality, it provides transparency to both the buyers and sellers of the resin, helping build a robust and stable PCR market. The independent third-party verification also offers another level of substantiation. This is a great example of how the APR design guide promotes accountability and levels the playing field for all of us.
So interesting to hear the background on all of the details that go into these iconic packages that we see on our shelves at the store every day. I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that these little things like a valve on a ketchup tube can cause problems in recycling, and then all of the work that goes into making those changes, and that people can feel confident that you're taking these steps so that those packages are recyclable. You also mentioned a couple APR programs. You mentioned the PCR certification and the importance of that, of course, and then also the APR design recognition, which recognizes a lot of these different innovations that you and Megan have been talking about. Megan, tell us a little bit more about those programs. They all support the APR design guide, and how have they evolved over the years?
Yeah, sure thing. I'll start with our newest program. As Kara mentioned at the beginning, this year I launched the APR Recycling Leadership Awards to celebrate the progress and honor the people and companies who are doing the work to create the world we all want to see. We received almost 120 nominations for this inaugural program. We've recently announced the winners and honorable mentions at the Plastics Recycling Conference, where the whole industry gathers. And as you mentioned, Chris, Kraft Heinz was among them. And I can't emphasize enough how remarkable it is that you've been willing and able to use PCR in a package containing a white mayo product. I'm also looking forward to celebrating even more innovators in the years to come. So for our listeners, please keep your eyes open for nominations to open up again this autumn. Chris, you mentioned APR Design for recyclability recognition earlier. APR recognition is an engineering assessment of the technical compatibility of your packaging material with recycling processes. APR issued its very first recognition in 2008. Since then, we've witnessed exponential growth. Overall, we've issued hundreds of recognitions to more than 120 companies, which means millions of packages with verified recycling performance on the marketplace. So packaging converters and suppliers use the program for credibility, to give confidence to their customers, and to stand out as knowledgeable solutions providers. And brand and retailers like that it lets them easily vet suppliers to access recyclable solutions, which helps drive adoption and scale. And the third-party nature of recognition also helps to reduce risk when making recyclability claims, meet legislative requirements, voluntary commitments, and reporting to organizations like How to Recycle and the U.S. Plastics Pact. Rebecca Mick and Ruben Nance do a fantastic job and can guide anyone through the process. There are a few different pathways now to achieve APR recognition. Each of these pathways carry equal weight. One is not better than the other. They're just different ways of proving out that a material will behave itself in the relevant recycling processes. APR also introduced a training program around 2015 for companies so that their whole teams can learn how to design for recycling. Trainings are led by our COO, Kurt Kozart, who has decades of experience building recycling plants around the world. More than 40 companies have completed training, including familiar brands like L'Oreal, Clorox, Pepsi and Coke, General Mills, Nestle, Target, to name a few. And some companies have even made the training a regular part of employee training efforts. Kraft Heinz, being one, has conducted the training 3 times, which is awesome to help people keep their knowledge fresh, build alignment and expectations with staff, and ensure compliance towards sustainability goals by educating the team so problematic materials don't creep back into your portfolio over time. Packaging suppliers also take the training. Folks like Amcor, Berry Global, Avery Dennison, Silgan, Aptar, and more. And being up to date gives those suppliers a competitive advantage to help their customers achieve their goals. And the training is holistic. It's not just how to use the design guide. You learn all about the recycling process from the moment recyclables are collected. You hear the latest legislative updates. You gain awareness of how different package designs perform. And it's an opportunity to brainstorm together with the experts on your unique packaging. We've expanded our design training offerings over the years. Each one is totally customized. Training is also now available in French for our friends in Canada. And we're also conducting more training and tour options, which combine classroom learning and recycling facility tours. Some folks find these more accessible. Most recently, we held a training and tour specific to flexible packaging that included a rare opportunity for a live guided tour of Natura PCR. Natura is one of the largest and most advanced mechanical film recyclers in the world. I was fortunate to go on that trip, and it was absolutely incredible. The last program I'll mention today is PCR certification. We do all this work on design so that we can produce PCR that manufacturers actually want to use. And certifying that PCR provides trust across the supply chain that the material really does come from post-consumer sources. We started this program in 2019 when both buyers and sellers of recycled resin were coming to us with concerns that post-industrial material and wide-spec virgin resin was being mixed in with PCR or frankly sold under false pretenses. So it really helps recyclers build confidence for their customers, ensures integrity of the material being bought and sold, while also promoting standardization that helps to stabilize the PCR markets overall. We've now certified 39 reclaimers in 49 facility locations since 2021. Rita Phillip has led the charge to create APR's PCR standard. The standard is a full chain of custody third-party assessment, and it was developed in coordination with Recyclass in Europe and aligns with anticipated requirements per California and Oregon EPR legislation. We also list all the certified PCR suppliers on our website so brands and converters can easily find reputable PCR suppliers to meet these regulatory requirements.
Thanks, Megan. All great programs at APR that support the design guide. Also great to hear about all the growth with those programs. You talked about the training program. Chris, let's get back to that one. As Megan mentioned, you're one of the only companies that has held multiple training sessions. Tell us about your experience with that and how it's benefited Kraft Heinz.
Absolutely. It's interesting. Megan had mentioned that Kraft Heinz has attended the training 3 times. It's actually been 4. Crazy, I know. Interesting. Every training I attend, I learn something new. As a matter of fact, I was on a call with Kurt yesterday. So obviously not within a training regarding a working group. And he had to set me straight on my interpretation of something. I think it was color. Bottom line, each time I attend, I pick up something new. The first training I attended was an in-person 3-day offering at Van Dyke in Norwalk, Connecticut. Highly recommend this to anyone. The session was a combination of classroom training and also provided an opportunity of an intimate tour of a MRF. Understand both the limitations and capabilities. I encouraged all to not only take the training, but tour your local MRF, because the best way to design with the end in mind is to actually understand the limitations of the process. So in addition to the in-person training, as Megan mentioned, we've brought APR into Kraft Heinz 3 additional times for an afternoon training sessions. We include not only packaging developers, but our regulatory, marketing, procurement, and product counterparts. It's important for the entire cross-functional team to be fully aware as to the benefit of appropriate package design and see in action the downside of a detrimental packaging feature. The training program identifies potential areas of improvement and encourages innovation in both package design and recycling process equipment through customized sessions designed to meet the unique needs of Kraft Heinz or any company. The beautiful part of the in-person session is the opportunity to share a potential or current package design with Kurt and work through the best practice design as a collective team so everyone hears it at the same time. It helps the entire value stream understand the opportunity.
Right. It is fully customized. Companies can send us their packaging and we create case studies, and you can kind of walk through all the different packaging features with Kurt and other people who attend the training. And also glad to hear that you mentioned your whole cross-functional team attends, because it's so important for everybody to be in the know about these types of things, not only the packaging engineers and designers. Outside of your internal teams, what about your vendors and your suppliers? Do you look for packaging components that have received APR design recognition? Do you look for certified PCR? I know you touched on this briefly when you were talking about some of your innovations and packaging changes, but let's talk about that a little bit more.
Kara, it's a condition of play for us. So a term I like to use is sustainable innovation. In my role, we interact with innovators often early in the innovation process. 3 to 4 years ago, APR's Critical Guidance Recognition Program was known by the big players, but there were some that were not yet familiar. The problem with not knowing is even if a technology provides an unlock Kraft Heinz, if it doesn't complement the current recycling infrastructure or even an infrastructure of the future, it won't meet our future needs. So we call that sustainable innovation. One of the very first questions we ask innovators upon new technology shareouts is whether or not the innovation has met the highest criteria of recyclability, APR's design recognition. And if it hasn't, we need to understand the path towards achieving the recognition or pivot to another innovation. It's as simple as that. As I mentioned earlier, we require all of our post-consumer resin that we use at Kraft Heinz in North America to be certified by an APR-approved body. No exceptions. We ensure supply continuity by qualifying a number of resins as backup, but they too must be APR certified. So we hold backup resins the same level of rigor as we do with qualified resins.
Obviously, Kraft Heinz is an international company. Your products are not only on the shelves in the U.S., but across the world. So, Megan, the APR Design Guide is widely recognized across the globe. Can you tell us about that broad influence and where it's headed next?
I've talked a lot about the US today because that's where APR got its start. But recycling and packaging are international markets, and recycling systems and favored packaging formats vary in different parts of the world. Collection seems to be the biggest hurdle that everyone has figured out how to do a little bit differently. But the nice thing about physics and chemistry is that they're the same everywhere. So there's still a lot of commonalities in the actual sortation and recycling processes where we can align. The APR Design Guide has become an essential source for everyone who's seriously tackling the redesign of plastics for the circular economy. For all of our members, participation in APR is in many ways setting the bar as recycling systems take shape around the world. The design guide is directly referenced by organizations like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, US Plastics Pact, Walmart, the How to Recycle label, the Recycling Partnership, Consumer Goods Forum, and producer responsibility organizations in different countries. I do think it's telling that when you compare lists of problematic materials to avoid from plastic packs and NGOs around the world, the items repeatedly line up with materials that the APR Design Guide classifies as detrimental or that render the package non-recyclable. The APR Design Guide is even written into law in California, which is a state that frankly outranks many nations with its economic influence. So although the design guide was created as an engineering resource, it's also being used as a regulatory tool to determine if a package is or isn't recyclable and how to set eco-modulation fees. So designing to meet APR criteria is helping companies stay in compliance with regulations and reduce their costs as EPR fees take effect. All of this has also forced us to be better, to be more precise in our guidance, to communicate publicly and transparently every time there's a change, and to consider the guidance beyond a U.S. context. We've entered year 3 into an ongoing project to harmonize guidance with Recyclass in Europe. We just released our year 2 report that documents progress to date. We're aligning guidance and working closely on new guidance moving forward. By studying topics jointly and sharing research and test results, we can all move further, faster together. We've also aligned on how we measure things. We've streamlined test protocols and aligned benchmarks to facilitate common assessments. We ultimately want to be able to issue APR recognition and Recyclass approval letters based on both of our recyclability protocols so that it's easier to know that a package will be technically recyclable on both continents. We're also working closely with our peers in Canada, Mexico, and other regions of the world. In fact, we recently released a French translation of the design guide with Spanish and Mandarin translations in the works. Even the United Nations Global Plastics Treaty negotiations have recognized recycling and product design as key solutions to plastic waste. I'm really encouraged to see the rapid growth and collaboration across the value chain and around the world. There's so much power in showing up so we can find a way forward together.
Right. I'm really encouraged to see all these collaborative efforts as well. We can't work in a bubble in the United States. We work with global companies like Kraft Heinz. So, Chris, I'm sure that the collaborative and all these harmonization efforts that Megan talked about are important to a global company like yours. Can you comment on that and tell us what would you like to see in the packaging industry going forward?
Kraft Heinz is a company of innovators. Across the value stream, I consider myself lucky to work along some of the brightest innovators in the industry. As a global company, APR's partnership with the likes of Recyclass, EPBP, ensures that there's consistent recycling guidelines globally. Working with partners like US Plastic Pack and SBC ensure we have a common frame of reference for recyclability standards. If we're all working towards a common mission, with a common set of guidelines, we can all innovate responsibly to offer innovations that can be commercialized at scale globally and complement the recycling stream that can be reprocessed and used again and again. If we're all working towards the same common goal, leveraging a common set of run rules, innovation is very much alive.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to hear about all of this work today with the APR Design Guide, but it takes all of our member companies like yours to make this all happen. Thanks so much to Megan and Chris for joining us today. Any last things that you want to add before we close out?
Yeah, just really that there's a lot of reason to be hopeful about the future. I know the doom and gloom scenario, especially in the media, is alive and well, but there's so much that's going on behind the scenes to improve the system at scale. It takes time and it takes all of us working together. But thanks again for the opportunity, Chris, Kara. It's been a pleasure.
I echo that sentiment. It's been a pleasure to chat with you, Kara and Megan, here today. And from my personal point of view, it's a pleasure working and being a part of the APR journey. So APR is providing guidance, but it's the input for that guidance is collaborative and collective across the entire value stream. As there were influence from innovators to brands, both within the North American market as well as globally, really helps set the standard and helps companies set themselves up for success.
Yes, it does. And we will continue all of these efforts going forward. Thanks again to Megan and Chris. And thanks to everyone for listening. For more information about the APR Design Guide and all the other programs we talked about today, as well as general information about plastics recycling, visit the APR website at plasticsrecycling.org. Check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X at APR Recycles. We want to hear from you. Feel free to contact APR at info@plasticsrecycling.org for more information. You can find recycled content wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review.
This podcast was recorded in the studios of
Policy